powers that he doesn't have, threatening to shut down Twitter for flagging false content, claiming he can override governors who dare to keep churches closed to congregants, asserting the absolute authority to force states to reopen even when local leaders say it's too soon. As he battles the coronavirus pandemic, 45 has been claiming extraordinary sweeping powers that legal scholars say the squatter simply doesn't have, and he has repeatedly refused to spell out the legal basis for these powers. It's not that the squatter doesn't have a remarkable amount of power to respond to a public health crisis. It's that these are not the powers he has, said Stephen Vladeck, a University of Texas School of Law professor who specializes in constitutional and national security law. First, it was 45's assertion that he could force governors to reopen the economies before they felt ready, when somebody's the squatter of the United States authority is told what he claimed, which it's not. 45 soon dropped the threat, saying he would instead leave such decisions to the states, but he's revived the idea in recent days as he tried to pressure governors to allow churches and other places of worship to hold in-person services, even when stay-at-home orders and other limits on large gatherings remain in effect. Asked Tuesday what authority he had to enforce such a mandate, 45 was cagey. He claims he can absolutely do it if he wants to, which he can't. We have many different ways when I can override them, and if I have to, I'll do that, which you don't have the power to do that. The White House declined to spell out any specific statute, but White House spokesperson Judd Deere said in a statement that every decision the squatter has made throughout the pandemic has been to protect the health and safety of the American people. Yeah, bullshit. Getting the nation back to work, back to sporting events, back to churches, back to restaurants, and doing so safely and responsibly is a shared goal with governors in the private sector. But the cure cannot be worse than the disease, Deere said. Yeah, bullshit. 45 certainly does not have the power, under any reasonable reading of the Constitution or federalism, in order to place places of worship to open, said Matthew Dallek, a historian at George Washington University's Graduate School of Political Management who specializes in the use of squatter power. But Dallek said that just because 45 doesn't have the authority to do most of the things he's threatened doesn't mean he won't. For instance, trying to sign executive orders by taking such action anyway, even if they are later struck down by the courts. What has limited 45 previously? Not very much, so I think he would do whatever seems to be in his best interest at any particular moment, even if it's a bad thing, Dallek said. 45, he said, also could try to abuse his powers, which he's already have on numerous occasions anyway, to leverage other instruments of government from the Department of Justice to the IRS, to push for investigations or launch regulatory crackdowns to punish states, cities, or companies. 45 also has showed he's willing to exercise powers that modern squatters have largely avoided, including his recent purging of the inspectors general. When the squatter declared the pandemic a national emergency back in March, he activated more than 100 different statutory authorities. 45 said Vladeck. Yet 45, Vladeck has said, has failed to exercise many of them. I think one of the real ironies of this entire moment is that the squatter actually has a remarkable array of powers that he hasn't brought to bear, all the while he continues to claim stunning powers that he doesn't have. That includes the Defense Production Act, which 45 could have used far more aggressively to force companies to mass produce supplies like masks and ventilators. Instead, he used it in more limited ways, and while the Justice Department has threatened to join lawsuits against states that move too slowly, a statement of interest filed by the Department in Illinois last week didn't raise any federal constitutional claims. Even if he doesn't follow through on threats, 45 statements still have consequences as he uses his bully pulpit. He's still trying to wield his often outrageous interpretations of the law as a cudgel to bludgeon others, said Joshua Geltzer, who's the founding executive director of the Institute for Constitutional Advocacy and Protection at Georgetown University Law Center. 45 is now on a tear against Twitter after the social media platform, which he uses to speak directly to his more than 80 million inbred followers, slapped fact-check alerts on two of his tweets claiming that mail-in voting is fraudulent. Basically, he went off on Twitter saying that Twitter is completely stiffing free speech, which do not. A day later, 45 added that Republicans feel that social media platforms totally silence conservative voices. We strongly regulate or close them down before we can allow this to happen. While Congress could pass any legislation further regulating social media platforms, 45 has no authority whatsoever, said former federal judge Michael McConnell, who now directs Stanford Law School's Constitutional Law Center he is just venting. There's absolutely no First Amendment issue with Twitter adding a label to the squatter's tweets, added Jamil Jafar, an executive director at the Knight First Amendment Institute at Columbia University, who won the case that prevents 45 from banning his critics from his Twitter feed. The only First Amendment issue is the squatter's threat to punish Twitter in some way for fact-checking his lies. But Jack Balkin, a Yale University law professor and First Amendment expert, said that this is not 45's point. This is an attempt by the squatter to do, as we used to say in basketball, work the refs. He said he's threatening and cajoling with the idea that these fragile corporate boardrooms will think twice about what they're doing, so they won't touch them. For Rutgers University's media, Professor John Pavlik, who studies online misinformation, 45 is simply trying to fire up his inbred base. For 45, he said, this is all about politics and doesn't give a shit about anything else.